Absolutely. All right, some big news coming out of Ann Arbor, Michigan today is Jim Harbaugh is facing a 4-game suspension for it's a negotiated resolution, as they're calling it, tied to the NCAA recruiting investigation in which Harbaugh faces a level 1 violation, the most serious kind in the purview. Those first 4 games are East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. Former Michigan defensive coordinator, and I've already forgot his name, and Mike McDonald is now with the Ravens, has a 1-year show cause penalty, but he's going to be with the Ravens, so that's not really that big of a thing. And so the offensive coordinator and another coach could also face some suspensions during that time, maybe a game too. Sharon Moore and tight ends coach Grant Newsome. They're both expected to be sanctioned, lesser in scope than Harbaugh's 4-game penalty. But this is more or less because Harbaugh lied to the NCAA when they were investigating it instead of cooperating fully. The fact that he got out with four games, and it's the potentially easiest 4 games on their schedule, although ECU is one of those teams who can come into places and seemingly, block 2 punts and, return an interception for a touchdown, and you've got a game all of a sudden. But Jim Harbaugh facing a 4-game suspension to start the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of hamburger jokes going around, and a lot of poking at what people do end up getting in trouble for when it comes to the NCAA versus what people don't get in trouble for. I think sometimes we lose sight of their sort of ballpark that they can work with. They're not the police. They can't just and not in any way, shape, or form is this a police matter that we're dealing with anyways. But there's just certain stories that have come along, and you're like, why didn't Tennessee get worse than they got? Or why didn't Baylor get worse than they got? Or why didn't Miami back in, or whatever, or Penn State? We've seen pushback. And this, though, was not one of those situations where you're wondering about the legal side. It was just a matter of, how big of a deal is this really? And, you look at some of the rules that were, allegedly broken or whatnot. And it was very curious about how this would play out. But one thing that we do know when it comes to the NCAA, as confusing as some of their hand-me-down punishments or, decisions may be, just bottom line is don't lie, I think, is the one thing that you can take away. There's questions about a lot of other things about how, they come to decisions. But I think the main thing to keep in mind is just not to lie. You can fight back is better than lying. But cooperating is certainly better than lying. And yeah, he allegedly was, in their eyes, dishonest when talking about some of their level or some of their violations. And to lie is, in their eyes, a level 1 violation. So even if you're talking about some level 2s, but you're lying about them, you're therefore, in their eyes, committing a level 1 violation. And that can, be a 6-game suspension. So, this is a situation where I think the punishment doesn't necessarily fit the. I don't know if the crime dictates the punishment. It's just that the line did in the end, and that's really all there is to it. So very interesting to see that come down. Obviously, he wasn't the only one that was committing some violations or allegedly committing violations during the COVID period. He was not the only one that was probably buying a burger for a recruit. He's not the only one that was having meetings when you weren't supposed to. I think we've seen others, alleged to have done that and so forth. But, in this situation, he wasn't honest enough for the folks in charge, and they've decided to hand down what looks like a 4-game suspension. So I know there's still some resolution to, icing on the cake to be done here, but very interesting. Like I said, I guess the lesson is just don't lie to the NCAA, and you should be okay. But then again, it's the NCAA. So who the heck really knows what you are supposed to do at any given moment?
Yeah, and look, it's not a good look for Michigan to start the year. This is a team that's probably going to contend for the college football playoff. They've got the best quarterback they've had in a very long time in J.J. McCarthy coming back, and he looks to be probably another year better. They've really taken control of that conference and finally slayed that Ohio State dragon that was just on their backs forever. But to start out the year this way, regardless if it's your easiest 4 games or not, just not a good look for the Wolverines.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's going to have to miss games, and that is a bad look. I think most Michigan people are probably still, still unfazed by any of this. It's just anything a little annoyed by the fact that he's going to miss some time. I think that they should be okay in the long run, but yeah, I mean, this could have been handled probably a little bit better on his end. But now they've got to, I guess, come to a resolution on exactly what they're going to do here. But 4 games is kind of the, I guess, the baseline for this. And I guess there's, some negotiating as far as what the actual final penalty will be. But yeah, I mean, you never want your head coach to not be on the sidelines, especially to kick off the season. They've got East Carolina, they've got UNLV and Bowling Green, and then they bring in Rutgers to kick off Big Ten play. So that's a 4-0 start with or without Harbaugh in my mind. But yeah, you'd much rather have him out there. So that's an interesting piece of news, and I'm curious to see how long it takes them to come to. I mean, obviously it can't take too long to come to final determination, but I'm curious to see how long it takes to kind of put a bow on this thing, and he can get his game served and then go about his business.
Yeah, absolutely. So